Welcome to the August 27th voting board meeting of the Haddonfield School District Board of Education. I'll call the meeting to order. Mike, can you take roll?
Mr. Bedford.
Here.
Ms. Crooked.
Here.
Ms. Hogue. Ms. Hogarth.
Here.
Ms. Kuttner.
Here.
Ms. Paoli.
Here.
Mr. Vecchio.
Here.
Vice President Seidel.
Here.
President Sangillo.
Here. We could rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Mike, can you read us the open public meeting statement?
Public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act has been given by the Superintendent of Schools in the following manner. On January 10th, 2020, notice of this meeting was posted on the interior of the school administration offices, 1 Lincoln Avenue, Haddonfield. Written notice was submitted and filed with the Haddonfield Borough Clerk, and notices were faxed to the Courier Post and mailed to the Retrospect newspaper.
Thanks, Mike. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge the work that went into our new format. We are in person again in the Haddonfield Library, or high school library, and we, other than board members who are out on vacation, they can still log in. But we are also streaming to YouTube so the public can be a part of the meeting while still adhering to the state's limits on people in indoor spaces. So Ryan, Chris, and John from IT, thank you guys. Some are in person, some are at home coordinating to make this happen. They were here somewhere, but they probably escaped to chill. Thank you guys. All right, so we're gonna start with.
Can I point out something?
Oh yeah, please.
It's a Promethean board with a USB camera. This is very much like the setup that will be in most of the classes.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
Sure.
Hopefully, with much more capable people at the on the screen. What's this?
I know that big? Okay.
Okay. We're going to start with committee reports, and then Gene, did you have something that you wanted to do prior to committee reports, or do you want to wait until?
I think it's waiting to do the superintendent.
Okay, all right, excellent. All right, David, curriculum?
Okay, so curriculum, I'm doing 2 tonight. Actually, I'm going to do 3 tonight.
Okay.
I'm going to be doing curriculum for Ms. Hogue. I'll be doing policy, and I'll give a brief HET update. So in curriculum tonight, you'll see the fruits of the curriculum labor. Some of those will be resolutions for things needed for the fall, including live stream protocols for parents, live stream protocols for teachers, as well as resources for hybrid education. One of the big things we discussed, and this meeting was prior to the announcement that will be in the policy update of not using state standardized testing for evaluation of teacher performance. But we use Lincoln. We use Lincoln in this district to keep tabs on progress. And then when we see progress falling behind, there's no judgment in that. It's just our students performing, and we can make adjustments. So we do those testings, I think, 4 times a year. So we discussed about having to explain that data a little bit better. You know, people really want to say that their student is high performing, and that is the case. The very first Lincoln is almost kind of like a benchmark of what you don't know, and it's concerned people in the past. So what we're going to do is create a letter just detailing how to read the scores. Possibly Dr. Murray had talked about also doing a video to try to just explain that, no, they're not doing poorly. They haven't been taught it yet. So it's something that's come up. So we talked about that. We discussed the families that are talking about forming learning pods and what resources would be provided to that. One of the things we talked about, staying true to our model of educating all the students, regardless of how they're structuring themselves out of the time. We want to be respectful that We are not creating separate lessons for pod learning, that we're creating lessons for the children as individuals with individual learning and a classroom totally. And also reminding people of the educational record of their child and to make sure that they keep that in the forefront, no matter how they feel they're sharing the education experience. That's a long way of saying, even if you're in the same pod, some students are going to be better at some subjects than others. So, you kind of have to judge your child's progress by yourself, not how they're competing against their peers in any pod situation that might be structured. It's just a cautionary tale that we kind of talked about. Then we talked about families who might bring suit about catching COVID. Mr. Klaus talked about the legislation that's on the floor to protect districts against that type of liability. And we asked for an additional meeting in curriculum, and then funny, policy asked for it too, for the additional meeting on the 3rd. Both of those are for second readings of policies that we'll be having first readings tonight because they need to be on the books before we open the doors. So we needed a second meeting to get the second policy read. Most of those are mandated. So let me transition into the policy report then. So the remote learning options for families, also known as the road back policies. We discussed some adjustments. Let's see what the adjustments were. Forgive me, I'm reading Lynn's notes. There were additional required components indicating that parents may submit and the school district must accommodate requests for a full-time remote learning on an individual basis. That was covered by our survey since the meeting had occurred. We talked about the details of the new policy, also added an appendix Q, which you'll see that in Q. I'm looking at you.
Yeah, that's on 1648 or 02, the remote learning, where we just establish a process by which parents can request to switch between online and in-person learning.
And we established that at the end of a marking period.
That's correct.
Yes. And then it's funny, we had 2 meetings in August because more mandated policies were coming in. So that entire meeting was discussing the road back and all of those issues, and parent feedback from the Q&As of the last 2 meetings to incorporate them into policy. And then we got more. So a couple ones were acceptable use for computing networks and computer resources. When you are on campus in a school, you have certain responsibilities. We wanted to make sure that some of our policy adjustments extended to the home, like appropriate behavior on a live stream. It is one of those that we added language to that. We also then had to update facility cleaning practices because there were more mandates that came out from theirs. And I won't steal your thunder, Chuck. I'm just saying they're in the policy. We'll discuss them when we get to the policy section. And then another revision to the remote learning options for families post the first meeting that we had in August for that extended the clause notice, the principals, to 20 days. And that's all we've fulfilled that 20-day requirement. And now it'll be 20 days before the beginning of the next marking period where you have to make known your intentions of switching.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing we discussed was the policy review process coming up. And you'll hear about that in communications update. But just in general, we learned a lot of lessons from CUSAC. One of those is don't fall behind on your policies. It's a hard lesson learned. We spent nearly a year updating our policy book, and we don't want it to go to waste. So even though we are very busy, there are a lot of things to discuss in meetings, we don't want to get away from a very stable routine of policy updates. And there's another idea of theming certain board meetings around topics like security or academics or athletics or facilities. When they are themed, we're going to pull the policies related to those issues and make them as part of the review process, so that we stay on a very routine schedule of keeping our policy books up to date. So that was something that we discussed. There wasn't really any decision to make other than a commitment to make sure we don't let policy drop. So they're the two. And then the HET has done some wonderful things this summer for the school district. If you've been near the stadium, you will see the hardscape project with the bulldog. If you've been in the courtyard, I mean, they got that ready before picture season and the virtual graduation. The courtyard is just looking fantastic. There's another project with the Sarah Tarditi Gallagher garden that is
Hey, that's
coming.
facilities.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll take that back. So I won't say facilities. I'll talk about all the wonderful projects they're doing. Chuck and I met with the HET the other day because there are some things we need. And one of the things we need are things like headsets for teachers. These things don't come cheap. They can be cheap, and you get what you pay for. So the technology department here selected a device that worked well with the Chromebooks, that worked well with the Prometheus boards and the cameras that we have. They're pricey, and we're a little short, obviously. We've been spending a lot on PPE. So the HET graciously is giving us a donation to cover the cost of, I believe it's 100 headsets for our faculty to be able to do hybrid education. And I'm not to steal Susan's thunder from facilities, and these projects weren't cheap, and the kitty's getting a little thin on the HET. So this is just a personal plea that when they come a knocking for fundraisers, you come and answering, because they've dropped a lot of coin for the benefit of our students.
I think one of the things, Gino knows the headphones better than I do, but one of the nice features is the mics are sound canceling. So when the teacher's speaking into the mic, the din of this class will not come across, just clearly the teacher's voice.
And unlike this headset that has two earpieces, that will only have one, so that the teacher can hear the audience in front of them as well as the online audience. So that was another feature of that headset. So thank you, HET. They're my three updates. Any questions? All right, super.
All right, Susan is going to present us with the Finance Facility Committee. I'm going to try to get Susan, I'm going to try to get John to share this with this
Great.
on the screen. But I'm
Yeah,
gonna-
just, we met, can you guys hear me? My headphones feel weird. All right. We met on the 12th of August, 2 weeks ago. So I'm thinking a lot of these things are out of date. So Chuck and Mike, if you have better updates from what we discussed, one of the first issues was the activity fees. Obviously, parents voicing concerns about paying a fee if there's no activities. And the decision then was a sort of pay as you go, pay for fall, see if spring happens kind of thing. Is there any update on that for the activity fees?
No, that's
It's okay. So that's where we were. So the other thing, there were a few issues, residency issues of a senior moving out. Fortunately, it falls under senior privilege. So there weren't any hard decisions to make there that the student can stay in the district. And there were a lot of project updates, which I'm thinking are hopefully much further along now. The vestibule project was going, just the finishing was going slightly slower because there was delays over the glazing for the doors. Mike, are they all set now, the vestibules?
Yes, and they'll be ready for the start of school. The doors are installed. The only thing that will not be here for the start of school is the ballistic glazing, but the fireproof windows are good for the doors. So everything will be in place except for that one piece.
So that's kind of nice to finally, that one will be done and closed out soon. The district is making they're required to get Alyssa's law certification compliance. So So that's the first step. And then once we get existing compliance approval, then we can go after grant funding. The state hasn't released the application for the grant funding. We have 153,000 allocated to us. And the last we discussed was using that money for ballistic glass covering. So to put film on all of the first floor classrooms and glass. Mike, has there been any progress on that front?
No, because, the delay in the application.
Yeah, so there's nothing much to do now on that.
We know what we're submitting. When it comes out, we know what we're gonna apply for the application, but the illicit law compliance hasn't been done.
So the last two projects are related, and Dave touched on them, that we're having the air handling unit, the enclosure built, and the new upgrade that will serve the C wing. And the good news about this is, we talked about when we do a renovation, to do it comprehensively and everything else that it touches. So with digging up, because it is new construction foundation, had to dig up the asphalt in that courtyard area. So the good news for that is the project came in so under bid, and also the fact that they had to rip up the asphalt surface anyway and improve drainage, that it made sense to move forward on that beautification project that Dave described. Land designed it, our architect of record, and it's really nice, and especially now in our COVID age, that to think of this as outdoor classrooms. Can we get the plan up? Is that possible? I probably could share my screen if not.
No, I can do it, Susan. Hold on.
Because I think it's worthwhile seeing it. It's really going to add something to the school. Because like right now, it really just functions as a pass through, but it'll be a space. Actually, a couple of them.
Hold on one second. John, can you see?
No,
There you go. There you go. So what you can see is the little hatched area. That's the new mechanical room addition. And across from that door where you see the steps going up and it looks like an amphitheater, that's right outside the art room right now. So that'll be a tiered classroom. There'll be a flat panel across it for a board for projecting. So that's one class area. And then moving down is more informal. And there's going to be the tension tent canopies above it. So you can see that it really creates a series of gathering spaces. And this will also help with cafeteria overflow, since the seating in there has to be reduced. So the good news with this is that HET has generously raised money for this. There's still an overflow for us, but it's well within the surplus from the estimate. So I think altogether it was about $176,000, which gives us really a couple of outdoor spaces, and it helps us deal with having places for the kids to eat lunch when it goes to full day. Any questions?
Are we able to view those plans anywhere, like kind of up close and just seeing from a distance? They look great.
I'll email it to you. Can you?
Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. The other thing we talked about was our sub-nurse rate, which evidently we pay considerably less than the surrounding districts. So that's on the agenda tonight, to increase that rate. We kind of went into the middle of what others are offering. The last thing that we discussed was, and Adam, there might be more of an update, was the land swap, which hasn't happened. And I think there's just questions about the site and the use and historic preservation in our new pandemic era. Is there anything to add on that, Adam?
Well, I wasn't gonna waste time. I have a lot to say on that, but I was gonna wait till new business at the end of the voting period.
Okay.
Nothing really. We just heard back from the borough today that it's just been delayed. We're eyeing for it to go through closer to year end. So that's where we are.
Okay, that covers our meeting.
All right, Susan, thank you. Any other questions for Susan? Okay, Dave, are you covering policy for Lynn?
No, I did policy
Oh, you
already.
did, you did them both. Jamie, do you have anything to add for communications? Do you want to plug anything that's going on?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we're gonna do a board meeting bulletin after this meeting, which for those people that don't know, for a few months, we've been issuing kind of a, just a breakdown of what happens at the meeting, so that you see, you know, in case you don't have a chance to get to the meeting or watch the full meeting, you can, check out the board meeting bulletin, which Polly does post on the district, Facebook page, as well as, the board website. Also new is the drafts of policies that we discussed, because if you look at the public agenda, the policies that we're discussing are listed there. If you want to see more information on those policies, we're going to be posting the drafts that are up for first and second reading on the board website. And we will put a link on the board meeting bulletin to that so you can find it easily. And that's it. Any questions?
All right, Jamie,
Thank you.
thanks.
Jamie, back to one thing, so when we send out the PMD, will we have the link, I guess, will it be on the website
Well,
yet?
we can, it is already on the
It's already there.
website, right? It's already on the website, but we'll link it, or we'll put a link on to it on the BMD so that people know where it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll always be under board, under board, and then under the Board of Ed, under policy.
That's correct, yep. On the board web page, on the policies at the very bottom, you'll see, the.
Draft policy.
Draft policy. And we always do 2 readings, so the first reading is when we first discussed it as a full board. It's a good time to call in with any questions and comments about it, and then we do a second reading before we vote on it.
And they'll go on after the policy meeting, even before the board meeting comes up.
That's right.
As soon as policy meets, they'll be
That's
posted,
correct.
it'll have to be several weeks before a board meeting.
That's correct.
Yeah, so it's a good place to kind of keep an eye on if you're interested in policies that are coming up.
And the only other thing I would note on that, the documents are marked up, so where you see them highlighted in yellow, that's new language, if it was an existing policy, or if it's something that we added or customized for Haddonfield, or you'll see strike throughs, which are indications of things that we're taking out.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, and a lot of these are policies that are given to us that are standard, right? And then,
Yeah, you always look on the top right, so the ones that have an M next to them are mandated by the state of New York.
Thanks, Jamie. Tom, can you give us a negotiations update?
Oh, can I just mention one more thing about the policies?
Sure.
In addition to mandated, sometimes you'll see our policy, and sometimes you'll see a policy and then the regulation behind it. And they are both shared on that site. So the policy is the language, and then the regulation is the specific practices that are followed to adhere to that policy.
Which is actually a very odd name to call it a regulation. That's what Strauss Estimate calls it. Who we get our policies from, it's not actually a law or real regulation. It's our actual practice within Haddonfield.
We used to have called procedures.
Yeah, procedure is really what it is.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying that. Okay, Tom, give us a negotiations update.
Great, thanks, Adam. Wanted to take a minute to make a statement on the state of our negotiations with the Haddonfield Education Association. First, as we have stated unequivocally, we truly appreciate the work our teachers put in pre-COVID and now even more so in the spring in anticipation of this new challenge. Second, I'd like to recognize the efforts of the HEA negotiations team, my fellow board members on the negotiations team, Mr. Klaus and his team. Public contracts under the most normal circumstances are complex and difficult to negotiate. In our case, this has been exacerbated by our current crisis, both with respect to the public health implications and the uncertain fiscal future at the local, state, and federal levels. Third, while we have not yet reached an agreement, we very much want a settled contract. We were hoping for settlement prior to commencement of the school year, have met remotely with the association 6 times since March, and the board has made several offers during this process. We are committed to continuing our efforts to finalize this contract as expeditiously as possible, giving our dedicated teachers what they need while observing our obligation to our residents. Beyond this statement, I do not intend to provide any further details on the specifics of our negotiations. Thank you, Adam. Any questions?
Thanks, Tom. Okay, Gino, do you have a update for us?
I do. I'm just gonna move up because I decided to do this enrollment update a little bit differently because looking at numbers next to grade levels, I don't think was as beneficial as compared to looking at the breakdown per grade level of students who are coming in for hybrid and students who have elected to be remote only. That's what I'm going to share with you here. Which
For the folks at home, you want to present your screen.
on here, right?
On the call.
Yeah, back on the.
Yeah. Okay, so first for an overall picture, our total enrollment currently, and this was as of yesterday, this is always a moving target, 2,648 students. District-wide, 86% of our students have chose the hybrid option, and 14% have elected to go all virtual. And you can see there's a breakdown by school. And you can see in red are the hybrid and in blue are the students who have opted to go all virtual. And so the next several slides, you'll simply see a breakdown per school, per grade level of those options. There really weren't too many anomalies in the data. We had a couple hot spots, but nothing as far as a trend. The closest thing to a trend is really that our elementary has the highest level of all remote. And as you get up in the ages, that number goes down. But it's really not by a lot. You're talking about like 16 to 15 to 14, something along those lines. So nothing too statistically significant. Middle school, and the high school. And this report and presentation will be available on the district website within the next day or so. And the last piece of data that we pulled were the number of students that have withdrawn from the school district from June 22nd to yesterday, and the reasons for that. So you can see the vast majority of our students who have withdrawn moved, 43%, private 33%. 12% of families have elected to homeschool. And that's certainly a higher number. You would maybe see one or two in a given year. 11 represents 11% unknown, and that's only because it's probably happened within the last 48 hours, a notice of withdrawal, and we did not receive a transfer card back or a withdrawal card to indicate the reason for the withdrawal. So that's the attendance report.
What's the total number, Gino? You said that.
The students that have withdrawn?
Yes.
That's the one thing I don't have in front of me right now, so.
And that's across all grades. So withdrawals can happen not just because of this, they could withdraw because they've gone to a Catholic school
Well,
or.
the people going to the private school are going to private school because most private schools are going 100% capacity 5 days a week. Right, so while it might be for a lot of reasons, would be a good guess that that's part of the motivation for leaving
Sure.
and going to a private school.
Our total numbers though are still pretty high, 2648.
Yeah.
It's not like any withdrawals really affected our population.
No, nothing significant.
Well, it's
I think
kind of
the
like what
overall
Ms.
number,
Oak
it's like
pointed-
58, the number's like 58.
What Ms. Oak pointed out in the last meeting, which was the number of students wouldn't significantly be advantageous enough to offer more time to more students. We have dribs and drabs in cross grades.
That's correct.
And the homeschool are also a result of the world.
Sure. So, I don't know if this is the time to ask the question. For those that are staying in the hybrid model, because it's less than a full day, I played sports, I played 2 sports. So my spring was usually, the academic heavy side. But I know in this district, especially at the high school level, some people keep a sports schedule according to the semester classes. That they might take an extra study hall in the fall because they have to leave for games anyway, or they just want to be prepared for practice or be able to do the gym. And then they take that extra class in the spring. Have we identified students that we might want to reach out and say, hey, according to your schedule, you might want to take another class? Because you're basically finishing at regular time anyway, and it's not going to affect your.
I don't believe we have.
On that note,
Is it something we
though,
could
our
do?
goal is we hope to go to 100%. I mean, so if we,
Sure.
I think we should really be opening the school year with the plan and intention of trying to get to full day 100%, which is why I'm always hesitant about changing schedules.
Yeah, no, that's a
without
great
keeping
point.
that in mind.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you.
Any other questions about the enrollment numbers?
Gino, thank you. You want to stop, or are you
Thanks,
still
Gino.
sharing for Chuck?
No, I'm just gonna, I don't have.
Hey, Gino, I do have another question
Yeah,
real quick.
sure.
So, and I have to click on these slides individually, but I don't even know if it's there, but we used to always worry about going over the enrollment numbers for each class in the elementary school.
Mhm.
And it's super small and hard to see. I don't know, are we coming close to any of those? If everybody ended up coming back full time, or has that already been juggled?
That's our, yeah, we're good with that. I don't believe any elementary where we're at max or even within 1 or 2 of max.
Okay, we're not even with the 1 or 2, that's great.
I believe so. We'll double check that. Have you let you know?
Love to see that old-fashioned breakout.
And I do give a lot of credit to our principals. They've been working very closely with their families to make as many reasonable accommodations to change requests as possible. So a lot of credit goes to them.
Another question about the homeschoolers. Unlike those who choose all virtual learning and then with notice at the end of a market period, they can change their time. Do people that chose a homeschool option, which really is withdrawing, what is their avenue back if there even is one?
They would re-enroll, and they can re-enroll at any time.
Sure, actually, if you got kicked out of a different school and
That's
then
correct.
you
You
get back.
just go to your home school, get notification of re-enrollment, and chances are if a short amount of time has passed, it should really expedite the paperwork process.
Sure, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Gino. All right, Chuck Klaus, you have an update for us?
Yes, just quickly. So we are now on August 27th, I believe, right? And scheduled to open school in a hybrid model on September 8th, with next week, the 31st, being 4 days of professional development for the teachers. I'm going to recommend we continue with the path we're on. I know there's some consternation about that, and I'll address some of those pieces. But my feeling are that I'll express some of my thoughts on this. The Executive Order 175, which the governor put in place, which was a pivot on his stance to permit full remote learning, is not an option. The spirit of Executive Order 175 is if you cannot open, then you should not open. If you can open, you're obligated to open in-person instruction. So it's not an option. You would actually have to petition the county to say, here's the reason why we're not safe to open. And so I don't believe we're there. I believe that we have hit the 40 standards that were put in the road back. We also are unlike other districts. There were districts that already had 30 to 40% choosing full virtual. We saw 86% overwhelmingly. Our parents believe they want their students to come back. It should be noted that this morning we submitted our full plan to the county about 3 weeks ago, our road back plan. This morning the county returned it to us, having reviewed it and okayed it. Said we addressed all 40 appropriately, No editing needed, no changes needed. We're good to go. So we've gotten the green light on that from the county. You know, there are a couple things that are tricky on it, and the one you're gonna hear a couple of them, but we have admitted, we've never claimed we're gonna have full 6 foot social distancing in our classes. Many of our classes will, most will not. Most of the desks in our classes are basically 4 feet apart, so you're probably 5 feet center person to center person. But the 6 foot was where practical, and if not, there had to be other things in place. And we had started full masks, staff and students from the beginning, even before the governor made that in there. So our students will be facing the same direction, they will be masked, our teachers will be masked, and we believe that compensates for that less than 6 foot areas in those times. So they're the reasons why I think we really need to go back. There are factors that could change that. The governor could say, you're not going back. If we were to, the Department of Health could say, we're spiking in this area, so we're not going back. So, and they will come down specifically as central schools not coming back. Like they will go to that level with their stuff. But right now, you know, we are good with both of those pieces. You know, some of the concerns that we've seen expressed through a letter, through Twitter. The first was pointed out with staffing. Our principals have done a lot of hard work and done a great job at staffing. At this point in time, we are shy a long-term sub in bio and a long-term sub in special ed. Everyone else is fully staffed, even found a French teacher, which is a very difficult find. I had talked earlier, I know it was something that was, I wasn't happy about maybe having to drop electives to cover other classes. There was only one elective that is not running and only had 5 kids enrolled. So in essence, the full high school catalog is going. That was great work done by Tammy and her team. They did some clever things like reduce number of labs in science because we're in a hybrid model to free up so they could put an additional class in there. There was something out there that we had teachers were going to teach 7 to 8 periods a day. That was never recommended or suggested by the administration. It was asked of the administration if I taught 7, would I get paid extra? The answer would be yes, but we didn't schedule anyone there. Then the other concern we're hearing is the HVAC system. And I'll go over this again. We have all of our dampers, we set at a minimum of 20%. By code, it's supposed to be 10%. There will be times, depending on the temperature, and some of ours that are computer generated, it'll be more because as the balance of temperature outside and inside get close, the dampers open greater because they have to have that piece. We will have MERV 13 filters, which are the highest basic filter we can use in our systems. All in full disclosure, they're going to be delivered September 21st. So we're going to be starting the year without those filters, but we'll have all brand new filters in that we have right now. The other thing to remember is the HVAC system is not the only thing responsible for circulating air. We can open windows, we can open doors and have air circulation that way too to get more fresh air in the building. The recommendation is that the HVAC runs for 2 hours before opening and 2 hours after closing. I talked to Tim today. We're running ours 24 hours a day. Going to cost a little more money, but we'll have air circulating through all the time. Tim and his team are going through, they're doing an in-house commissioning report on all of our HVAC units. So they're going through, they're checking for efficiency, they're making sure they're setting the right proper things, they're getting 20% in, they're checking the filter exchange dates. And by the way, when we get the MERV filters, we're going to be changing those monthly, which is more frequently than recommended. And so we have the HVAC system running that way. So we've covered those areas well, I think. Other questions came up about specifically high school and middle school and students who were changing classes. Every classroom, by the time we open, will have a sanitizer dispenser in the classroom, so kids can come in and sanitize. In the high school and middle school, they will also have wipes, so the kids can come in and take a wipe and wipe their desk down, their seat down before they sit down. So right now we have roughly a month and a half, 2 months supply of that. We'll have more in order, so as that runs out, we'll have more of those in. Playgrounds will be sprayed in the morning before school starts, and once mid-morning too, in the break. There'll be set time for each time, so the playgrounds will be sanitized with those pieces. So they're the steps we took And they're the issues that we've been hearing about, and that's how we have addressed those. Some other details or facts for you. So far, to date, we've invested roughly $250,000 in preparing to get ready to school with COVID-specific pieces. That includes about $46,000 in PPEs, $80,000 over sanitary supplies, another $100,000, $104,000 in additional staffing for the kindergarten, custodial staffing, those types of things. I'm missing some of the programs we have to buy, things like that to get the online work going. That does not include some other things in there, but that's right now we're roughly looking at, like I said, about just shy of about $231,000 so far put into it, which is going to grow, because as I just said, we've got to order more wipes and we have to order more hand sanitizer and keep these things going. So that number is going to jump. And as Mike pointed out, the state aid deduction was a result of COVID too. So even though that's not a COVID expense, it's a COVID impact of our budget. We're lucky. We got some donations. We got $20,000 in donations for the headsets. We've got about $8,000 or $10,000 in PPE. Some people have donated. So we have that luck with the donations there. One thing I'm going to ask Colleen, if you can jump in. She's got a couple quick updates on the delivery of the hybrid plan and some live streaming information. So Colleen, if you could jump in and help me out with that.
Hi, yes, thank you. We're very excited. We've been working super hard to try to make sure that the live streaming is used as fruitfully as possible. We had numerous conversations about how it's best to leverage that live streaming component to make sure that it's still interactive and it's not just a screen in front of the child's face. So we've set up, the action team, the instruction action team worked hard, and the subcommittees by school level worked hard to create parameters around the live streaming to make sure that it was consistent across the grades and across the schools. So in the elementary grades, from grades preschool to 5th grade, the kids will be live streaming at 9 o'clock in the morning and at 11 o'clock in the morning. And then 5th grade will have an additional one at 10 o'clock in the morning. And those are the times where it's consistent. The kids will be, live streaming with their classes, whether they're fully virtual or just home for their virtual days. That's a consistent, thing that they'll come across. Wednesday, they'll have a live stream session at 9 a.m., a community meeting session at 9 a.m. And then the other times in the afternoon for the elementary schools, it's special area classes, but it's also one-to-one, special attention type of activities that are happening with the kids. In the middle school and the high school, they're live streaming 50% to 100% of their class time. So we did it that way because we know that the teachers need discretion to be able to pinpoint and target if they want to. Some teachers are choosing to live stream everything entirely across the board. And, we're saying that that's a great strategy if you want to reduce the need for thinking about transitions too much. But it is probably more effective to pinpoint it. And so, for instance, a teacher in the middle school or the high school, they're meeting with their kids 2 times. They would meet them in the morning. They might do like a 20-minute lecture and then have a 20-minute type of a group activity. And then the kids would be working independently. And then in the afternoon, they would come back and do some kind of a regrouping with the classes in the afternoon. So in essence, though, middle school and high school is 50% to 100% of the class time will be live streamed. But I want to just make sure that everyone knows that our goal is to make sure that it's about engagement and that it's not about just having the screen open. So that's where we are.
Right. Thank you, Colleen. And
Thank
all
you.
those updates have been made in our return plan and on the website. So as we've made these changes, we've updated that road back plan, and it's all posted on the website under the reopening model. Also under that pull down on the website is a calendar. They have the calendar adjustments and the calendar of adjustments to cohort schedule when we have 4 or 3 day weeks. So if we have a Monday off, we're losing the virtual day, and we'll have a Monday, Tuesday, and for weeks like Thanksgiving, when it's a 3 day week, cohort 1 will be Monday, cohort 2 will be Tuesday, and then the half a day will be the virtual day.
Can you repeat where that is?
It's on the reopening pull down, and it's like the third one down. It says updated calendars. So it has the updated actual school calendars, and in that, that calendar's in there as well. That's all my return to school stuff I have for tonight. So if there's any questions about that, I'll take those, and I have a couple other topics.
One of the things from a curricular standpoint, is the afternoon sessions where some of the one-on-one stuff that would typically have occurred, occur?
Yes.
Like pull out,
Okay.
the pull out work that we do for somebody to just like catch them up in math or, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's right. And
Yeah.
and Wednesdays as well.
Oh, and the whole virtual day will be focused on that too.
That's right.
Just reminding us all, we're probably, I know that this time of year, usually I'm running in my mailbox to get my community calendar. There is no community calendar this year. We've said that a couple times, and that's sad, but it is true. I want to remind everyone that. We heard earlier Tom talk about the fact that we still are working with the HEA to try to get a contract. They have no contract. They inform me they will not be participating in back to school night this year unless they have a contract in place. We are going to be opening our outdoor fields for use for community groups. So when we went into shutdown with COVID, we stopped all outside groups from using all facilities, indoor and outdoor. Our high school sports teams are practicing. So as we come, and we're going back to school, so as we come around, we're going to start opening those fields. And Mike, Lefty, and I will sit down and get all that information out and pick a start date. Right now, all of our athletics are off. Well, I think tomorrow is their last day they can practice until September 14th. I'm not sure if we're going to wait for September 14th for that youth field hockey, youth soccer, use our fields, but we'll pick a date and we'll let them know so they can schedule it in. I was going to talk about the vestibule, but we already had that. Our cameras are in place and operational. Our administrators have been trained in how to use their cameras so they can see those. And it's in the craziness of this summer and in the wildness of where we are, we can't lose track of, there you go, thank you. We can't lose track of something we started this summer that's very important, and that's our real cause on social justice, right? I mean, we started that, we had that town meeting, which I think we all agree was a good, positive start. That's too important to lose track in all of this, right? We have to keep that focus. So our next one we had planned on hoping having scheduled in early October. So we're going to continue working with that, and you'll be hearing about that upcoming as we get those plans in place. I think, I will say I'm doing my job, but in some ways I feel like I'm not, because I'm talking more about opening buildings than I am about where we're supposed to be going. And we can't lose track of those things. So those curriculum pieces that we're changing are very important. And those causes, our strategic goals are very important. And we really need to keep in touch with those. So we want to keep those present in our minds as we move forward. And that's all I have.
All right, Chuck, it's very thorough, thank you. Any other questions for Chuck before we?
Chuck, I can't remember because I thought it was in a policy, but we were back and forth about what's the plan when we're notifying people when someone has COVID. Now, is that the county?
Yeah, so what'll happen is I've got 2 form letters supplied by the Department of Health. One that says a child in your school or a teacher has tested positive. And one is you were in close contact with them, and the county decides what that is. They do all the contacting individually. We just have general form letters that would go out. And the county's close contact is no masks, closer than 10 feet for more than 6 minutes. So, So I think in my mind, when this first happened, I would think that if I'm in a room and someone here contracts it, I would think we'd all be contact tracers. They would say, were you sitting within 10 feet of Chuck without a mask on? They said, no, and then Chuck would not be notified, from what I understand from the county. So they do all that notification and contact tracing. We cooperate with them and give them information they need, but they're in charge. They take over once it's there.
And so what would be, so the county would then figure out if there's an outbreak based on the amount of people who.
Correct. So they have
Thresholds?
They have thresholds, so and I should remember this, I read it 50 times the other day. If there's 2 people in the same room, they close that room down, they quarantine those people for 14 days. If there's people in different rooms, they close more down, they close buildings down. So they have all their standard thresholds.
Okay, but they handle the contact tracing for the most
Correct.
part, and we don't necessarily.
Yeah, that's all medical information, so we're not allowed to reach out to them.
And they make the call if you shut a whole school
They tell us
building
to shut
down. We don't.
We could. We have that, we always have that right to say, listen,
Okay.
we're worried about this, we've heard this, and we, for the safety of this, we can shut down anytime we want to. But there may become a time when they tell us they're shutting.
Sure.
Right. But we can always say, cases are rising in Camden County, we feel more comfortable going 2 weeks remote, we can do that whenever we want to.
Okay.
I just have to send a note, put a resolution to the county saying, here's the reason why we're doing it.
Chuck, I have a question. I know that we're gonna vote later on the revised calendars and having, knowing that there is this adjustment for the 4 and 3-day weeks, that's really helpful. But my question is with regard to some of the half days and the delayed openings. How does that play out?
The delayed openings are all Wednesdays, so it's virtual day. Doesn't affect really, we'll adjust it that way. We removed the first 2 half days at the beginning of the school year. So the only half days are the half day before Thanksgiving and the half day before winter break. They'll be virtual. I couldn't tell you very much what that's going to look like right now.
So there will be some kind of announcement at, this half day is up and coming and here's what.
And here's what
schedule
we're going to
will
be doing, correct, yes. In a lot of cases, if we're truthful, those half days, not a lot of instruction goes on those days anyway. At the high school, that's traditionally a pep rally day, right, for the big football game. So we'll have something in place and we'll put, that hasn't been on the top order.
I completely understood.
They're also Wednesdays, if you just said right before Thanksgiving and before.
Correct.
Right, they're both Wednesdays.
Yes.
So that makes it even easier.
Correct, yes. Oh, I didn't realize that, you're right, yes.
Okay. Any other questions for Chuck? All right. We are moving to I don't have an update, unless anybody had questions for me on the board. Look past my little spy there. We're going to go to public comments. I'm going to ask, where is John?
He's just hanging out.
Oh, I can't see him. I feel like I'm talking over the screen if you're in the room. John, if you could talk to Chris and have him shift this over, or Ryan, or whoever's doing it. Just switch us to the screen because of the virtual nature of the audience participation. We're going to be accepting calls over the phone. The instructions will go out to YouTube momentarily. Couple of reminders. Please, if you are commenting, wait till I call on you by phone number. When I call on you by phone number, please *6 to unmute your phone. Please maintain it on mute while you're holding, otherwise we're going to get a lot of feedback and we won't be able to hear the comments. So make the call, *6 on your phone will mute it. Please mute your phone. And then when I call on your phone number, I'm going to use the area code and last 2 digits.
Hey, Adam?
Yes.
I'm not sure if we're all going to be able to hear the questions as easily.
It's going to come up through here. So you'll be broadcast and you'll be audio cast into the board meeting that you're seeing on YouTube, which I guess is of the room in the high school, the library in the high school. We'll give it a minute to queue up.
Slides up on YouTube now.
It's okay, great. So reminder, *6 to mute until I call your number. When I call your number, *6 to unmute. We're running, Dave's gonna keep time. We've been limiting comments to 3 minutes, because it's our policy, and we want to give everyone a chance to speak before midnight. I'm not seeing any calls just yet.
Will we see them pop up too, John? Like when we were all remote,
Yeah, I'll change it.
it would,
Can it be? Is tonight the last day of the Republican convention? Trump speaking to me? Okay.
oh, there's that number.
62 logged in.
Working.
And it's not Justin. It's not
Yeah, that's right.
973.
No, it's not
Okay, we've got a caller, 856 ending in 19, *6 to unmute.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wow, I'm first.
Yes.
My name is Joe Jeziolowski. I'm on Kings Highway West. My daughter goes to Elizabeth Haddon. I think part of life is taking reasonable and calculated risks. It's a lesson my parents taught me. It's a lesson I'm trying to teach my own child. I think it's a good lesson. And I'm willing to take the risk of sending my child to school 5 days a week. I think it's a reasonable and calculated risk. I would love to see the administration at some point meet us halfway for the parents that want that. I know you're trying very hard. I get the sense from Mr. Klaus that he's pained he cannot do 5 days a week. But, we've all been hiding from this virus for months. And maybe it's time we all get out of our comfort zones a little bit. And let's just try it. Let's just try it. And if it doesn't work, if we have to dial it back, at least we can say we've tried something. We can look ourselves in the mirror and say we didn't cower in fear. We tried something. When our children go to this high school guidance counselors, they say, apply to reach colleges. That's a good lesson. So maybe at some point soon, let's just try it. Maybe it'll work. Let's bet on ourselves. Let's bet on our teachers and our parents and our children. Let's bet on our administrators and the plan that they've worked hard on. Let's give it a try. Maybe we can do it. If it doesn't work, we're just right back to where we are right now. But we'll never know if we just watch the pitch sail by without taking the bat off our shoulder. Let's give it a shot. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Right, I'm going to go with 708 ending in 81. 708 ending in 81.
Oh,
Yes.
can you hear me? Oh, wait,
Yes, we
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so, hi. No, I just want to thank everyone for being here. I know this is a very difficult time. And,
Can you tell us who you are and what street you live on?
oh yeah, this is Katie Bryan. I'm on Rhodes Avenue. Tatum Terrace. So I just want to, oh wait, did you get that?
Yes, we did. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So I just want to thank everyone for all of their efforts and everyone for contributing to their thoughts and feelings and everything. And so the only thing that I would request as a parent who chose virtual, who did it for our reasons that are good for our family, is that we haven't received any communication at the elementary level. So I would, I'm asking when that's going to happen. And just so we can move along and, start preparing for that. So.
Thank you, Kate.
I'll talk to the principal, thanks for communications.
All right, Chuck's going to work on that, getting communications out. Thank you for the call and the reminder. Thanks, Katie.
All right, thanks so much, guys.
Yes, and a reminder to those calling in, please turn down YouTube while you're talking, because on our side, we hear you and you're recording. Oh,
Thanks, Kate. Okay, we're gonna go to 856 ending in 25. 856 ending in 25.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, this is George Boyko, and my son, Alexander Boyko, is in high school in 10th grade.
Thanks, George. Turn down the sound in the background.
Okay, and my question is, my son is going to the virtual only model until at least November. And the question is, how will he get his textbooks? And should he contact his teachers directly to find out when the live stream is going on and what the link is for that? These are kind of logistical issues, but it's concerns that I have.
I'll talk to the high school principal, and I'll talk to all the principals, make sure that information gets out to everyone.
Thank you, George.
Okay.
Just.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ballpark timing on, I mean, the communications haven't gone out yet, right?
No.
So they will,
Yeah.
okay.
So
So
they'll be out in the next, I'll talk to them, make sure they go out early next week, if not tomorrow.
yeah, they're coming, they're coming soon. Okay, good. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, people definitely need logistics and specifics, and they're not out yet. So don't feel like you've missed something if you have not received logistics and specifics. Good question.
Okay.
Thanks, George.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Have a good night.
Yep, bye-bye.
That looks like it. Okay.
we should probably give it a couple more minutes. This is odd.
Okay, great. Give it another 10 seconds, 30 seconds.
I'll give a pitch for a directory spot while we're waiting, and I'll tell a funny story. I was leaving the baseball fields a week or so ago, and there was a gentleman kind of wandering around looking at houses. And he said, I said to him, "Are you looking for something?" He goes, "Well, I'm looking for," and he said the person's name. And I know they live on the street. I just misplaced where their address is. I said, "Oh, what's their name?" And as I say, and I'm opening up directory spot, I put in their last name. I said, "Oh, it's 216 Prospect," or whatever, you know, it was on Prospect. And he said, "Wow, how do you know that?" I said, "Directory spot."
So, you know, since you bring that up, there will be communication that goes out. Thankfully, we have 2 new volunteers that are taking over for directory spot. And Zone PTA, because of the situation that we're in, because we won't have a normal back to school night this year, Zone PTA is going to completely fund directory spot for this year. So it will be available to all parents. So,
All grade levels, all just one big
everything in
file?
one app. So, yeah, there will be communication that goes out, but that's really good.
Yeah, great.
All right, great. Okay, let's get through this agenda.
Are we we're closing public comment? So we clear the screen.
You can clear screen. Yeah, that's it. Okay. We're going to approve for first reading governance. How do we do this? I read first and then yeah. So 7 policy approvals for first reading. We have 1 policy approval for second reading, and we are revising the academic calendars for the 2021 year, and this is our second reading of the calendar revision. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Linda?
Second.
Jamie seconds. Any discussion?
Adam, I have a couple of points, and I'm just hoping somebody can answer or tell me what they think. The very first policy, 164802, I know that that's new in its first reading. It's obviously harder for the administration to manage and figure out how to put people into a classroom if they've been remote. It's easier to go from in-person to remote because essentially they just have to click on a link. My question is, the policy mandates that, we're gonna do this within 20 days. I just want to clarify, right? If somebody's sick and they stay home because they have the sniffles and they're trying to do the right thing, they can log on the next day with the link, and the teacher is sending out the link. And I'm saying this for anybody watching too, but the teacher's sending out the link to the entire class, not just those individuals who are virtual or at home that day. So if anybody's sick, they have the option of logging on at home. They don't have to notify the principal 20 days in advance before they can participate remotely. I'm trying really hard to project my voice through the mask.
And that's correct.
It's hard, I'm out of breath.
Moreover, this policy does not supersede any of the homeschool requirements that are already outlined in law and in policy for students who come down with an illness or for any other reason that is approved by the school district.
Yeah, on Heather's point, I didn't think of this before. So another thing is that attendance won't be affected. Like you have to quarantine for 2 weeks for whatever reason.
Right.
You can log on the way Heather was saying, even though you
And
signed up
you're
for the
in
hybrid
school.
and you're counted as
Correct.
being present. Okay.
And the other thing too is, if you're sick, you don't have to, you're not obligated to log on if you are home sick. So if you're home and you have whatever you're sick with, there's not an obligation. The answer isn't that, well, you could have logged on to come to school even though you were sick. You still can be sick too.
Yeah, you can be sick and not work, but.
Or you could be quarantined or
But I'm
staying
just saying
home,
it's
right?
good
If you're up
people
to it,
are
yes.
are
Right.
cautious when, they don't know if they've got the sniffles. So,
One of
if
the-
anybody sees that policy, they should just, if they want to participate, they're free to participate remotely.
And you're right about that, Heather. One of the things we see, or I used to see all the time as I was at the high schools, kids don't want to miss school because they're afraid of missing out. So they'll feel a little sick and they'll come to school. And we don't want that, right? We don't want that, right? So that really is an excellent point, that they can, if they feel a little sick, stay home and still be part of the class and not be endangering the whole thing.
All right, so, and then I had another comment, or several on, policies, 155.1. I'm opening that up real quick. This is how board members can, participate remotely. And I saw it as a bylaw. I didn't see that it was mandated, so I thought, even so, it seemed a little bit odd that there'd be such specific. To me, if you need to notify someone 5 days in advance, it might preclude a lot of us from being able to participate. Historically, our standard practice has been, if someone, can't attend, I know, Dave, even before we had COVID, you've dialed into meetings, I've dialed into meetings, we've participated over the phone. Truthfully, and it's only first reading, but I would love to change this so that, I don't think, number one, all board members need to vote. You just need to, my recommendation would be let Adam know, let Chuck Klaus know, and that we can just participate remotely, kind of like we have 2 board members doing tonight. And they may have given you, it doesn't matter, we didn't have that requirement, but I just don't think I think we're creating red tape, and it's not efficient.
I was not erroneously not invited to that policy meeting. I have to agree with Heather completely.
I have to
It's
say
way
that.
too restrictive.
Yeah.
Well, from a policy standpoint, it's kind of like the 3-minute rule. We have a policy of a 3-minute comment. We're adhering to it when a large crowd shows up for the purpose of giving everybody a voice and turn. But if 4 people show up and somebody wants to go on for 15 minutes about a policy, we don't preclude that. I mean, we would only hold them to it when it's that way. This is a policies are boundaries. They're not practice. this is my point of view about a policy. Policy is a boundary, it's a fallback position when you're faced with a problem that you're dealing with. One of the problems we'd have would be chronic absence, or, and a person who really has their heart in it, but just for whatever reason, work or whatever, can't have that. This is a new policy part of the COVID one, because there are people that just, they still want to do their civic duty, they just, now that we're moving back to full-time, they don't. We're a good working unit, so we won't hold, you can still participate. But not every board's that way. So policy is also a guide marker for the next board. Our board will not change because we only had incumbents run this time. But somewhere down the line, the board could change, and this could be a bone of contention.
I still think.
It's worded.
Even the wording.
It says the board member must contact, it says, it's strongly worded, you're making it sound like it's
There's
a
always,
suggestion.
I think you just say, where possible, something like where possible, we'll give advance notice, doesn't even have to be 5 days.
I would say advance notice, sure, from a wording, I just wouldn't want to not.
all of
Sure,
that out of
but
state
yeah.
language, it
But-
sounded insane, like you could go to Newark, but if you're
Yeah.
in Philadelphia, there's a different rule.
That first sentence of the second
Yeah.
paragraph about medical conditions or
Yeah,
being out of state is the only reasons why you can join remotely, it's too restrictive, so.
it's,
I mean, if someone's sick before a meeting,
let's kick it
you
back
can
to
make the
committee.
Yeah.
decision, I'm thinking,
Let's kick it back to
10 minutes
committee.
before.
So
It's a good
is
point.
that, and it's the electronic.
Gina, rewrite that.
So the timing and the electronic device pre-approved by the board. which is
Yeah.
kind of-
Yeah,
Totally.
actually.
This is a
It's
Strauss,
written,
right?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, it is the case. I will say though, there's a reason that there's 9 people and a quorum is 5. I mean, there are some times that you just can't make it.
Yeah.
And you either kill yourself or you trust your fellow board members. But, I mean, if you ever go to functions when you have people from other boards, like the GIF dinner, our board's really sane. I'm just gonna
Which
put
is
it that way.
why we make a same policy now.
Yeah, fair
Matt's
enough.
board might not be,
I don't wanna
and
beat it
now
down.
we have a same policy
I don't
already
beat
in
that
place.
horse. Flip
Yeah.
the equation.
So I think I would be okay with putting this one back to committee.
And in committee, one thing, what about someone who doesn't want to show up for an important meeting? And they're like, oh, yeah, make it available to them.
Yes.
You can absolutely dial in. We need you here.
Right.
There are times when we face hard decisions.
I'd say you still require,
Yeah.
permission from president or some group.
Yeah,
Some group.
yeah. Okay.
Well, the only thing I will say fair is this was a policy that was discussed to be discussed, I forgot all about this part. So in our committee, there were some policies that we said we might have to open it up as a committee of the whole because they came in so late. This is one of those that came in so late. So we can almost consider this as a committee of the whole because this is the first time we're all discussing this. So just for the folks at home, this isn't a dysfunction. This is a policy that came in after our last policy committee meeting. So we're treating this as a committee of the whole to discuss this policy.
We discuss them all anyway, so it's.
So who's gonna make the motion to drop this one from the agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, we're kicking this back to committee, and I'm gonna say that this is all Lynn's fault. Because Lynn is not here, and hopefully she's not even watching, because she is taking she dropped her son Sam to college this afternoon, so she is up in Vermont, that is why she couldn't join us. I meant to say that in the beginning.
And Adam did give her prior permission for being out of state and having an acceptable piece of equipment to do it.
I just have one more comment on one more policy and I'm done with the policies. Policy 5420, the reporting student progress. The one part where it is changed, in bullet point 4, it highlights that report cards won't be issued no less than 2 times during the school year. Aside from my own recollection, when you click on the regulation, we don't offer report cards only 2 times. We offer it 3 times. I just thought.
We do 2, preschool and kindergarten.
You're right. Okay, thank you. We're good. We'll drop that.
I had a couple, more just wording, is like 16, 48, 1.02, D1, and I know there's nothing there for 2, but in 3. So it says under 1 that this request must be submitted at least 10 calendar days before the student is eligible for in-person services. It clarifies in 3 that it has to be either at the beginning of the school year or the beginning of a marking period. But I feel like 1 contradicts 3. And so the wording in 1 was a little clearer and said within, 10 calendar days before the start of a marking period, it would become clear that as long, it's not just 10 calendar days, it also has to be the start of a marking period.
Jamie, I actually, I had a problem with that as well, but then when I went back and read it, because it's not just the marking period, it's also the beginning of the school
For
year.
the school year,
So
right?
then it's the, before the student is eligible, and they're eligible at the beginning of the school year or the beginning of the marking period. So I had the same thought.
Yeah,
Like
I would just, if you add that language in there or else I think that it's, I found it a little confusing just because, like, do you think if we added the wording in number 1 and then repeated it in number 3? Only because I read it as in they would be eligible as long as they gave the 10 calendar days.
Jim, you see number 1, are you talking?
D1, and then, and I think it was clear once I read on, but I just feel like there's so much information going towards parents right now that the clearer we can be, the less kind of back and forth we'll have.
That's a good point. We should make it simpler rather
Simpler,
than.
yeah, it yeah, that's all I'm thinking. Because I'm getting confused and I feel like I know.
Or how about putting the number next to the, would that also help? 10 days? 10 days for the beginning of the market period, 20 days for the beginning.
Yeah, you
of the
could
school year?
say, yeah, you could do that, 10 days.
Instead of the
10 calendar
X's
days.
themselves, we replace the X's with the actual number? Or,
Yeah, I just feel like in 1, it should be at least 10 calendar days before the beginning of a marking period, or at least 20 days before the beginning of the school year.
So it's D1, correct?
D1, yes.
Gotcha. We'll go back and take a look at that. Thank you.
So we kind of screwed up there was a motion to kick, the policy.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. We got, let's just do that now. So the motion on the floor is to send
policy 0155.1.
back to committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Opposed?
And, all right, now we're still back in discussion for the policies. Any other policy discussion topics?
Just that, if it wasn't clear in 10B, the Restart and Recovery Plan, we're voting to accept the plan of a hybrid start and submit that to the state.
It's already been.
Oh, it's already been
so
cleared.
We're good, yes.
So this is our acceptance of your recommendation to start as a hybrid model.
Well, I don't know, Mike, does that have to be a separate, that's not part of the policy, that has to be a separate thing, wouldn't it?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, we're accepting the policy, the spirit of that policy.
Right,
is-
we approved the recovery plan, the road back plan last time, so I could submit it to the county.
Yes,
So that's already been done.
but as a policy, it needs to be read twice. So this is the second reading, and
Okay.
it's the complete recovery plan. now.
Yes.
Were you finished, Dave?
No, I just wanted to caution, a part of confusion, I think, with the public, because the calendar's revised again and again. Instead of, we should actually remove the date and say draft, instead of putting a post-dated calendar out for the public as,
Right.
as like an official type of statement. So in the last meeting in July, we approved on first reading the calendars. Calendars got then posted to the website with an August 28th date, which is tomorrow, in anticipation of an approval. Just from the things aren't in stone until we vote.
Right.
I think it should have said draft without a date on it.
Great, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Can I, just since you brought up the calendar, can I comment on that? I don't have any issues because I don't think we have a lot of flexibility to change it. So I'm stating perhaps what's obvious here. It's just a shame that this is the first time I can recall that we will not have a full spring break. Maybe people won't be able to travel at that point anyway, but I just didn't know, sometimes it's a good mental break, a mental refresher, and I spent some time today trying to figure out if anything could be done other than the last day of school. I think it's just the way
Right.
the calendar year falls this year.
And we didn't have a full spring break during construction. Right, we only had, a very short break there, and we've had several snow days eat into the break as well. But there is no wiggle room unless you start moving graduation back toward July. I don't think we want to do that.
Although people have plans, I appreciate that this is advance notice.
Yes. And there will be some who will choose to continue with their plans regardless of the split.
But now they can do
They
remote.
can do remote.
They can do remote and jump in the pool too.
Well, in my mind, we won't be remote anymore. And that's not real. That's not.
Amen.
Concerning, policy 2361 with the addition of the live streaming and recorded instructional video, and that information is the property of Haddonfield School District, and that students are not to disseminate that in any way. Can we, or should we, make that known? Is it in the student handbook?
No.
At least do an addition, make sure students know, because I think this is one of those rules students break without realizing it's a rule.
So the student handbooks, you're going to be approving student handbooks next Thursday. They had to make these policies, at least when these policies were in, because they didn't go in with student handbooks.
Okay, so they
But we
are.
will emphasize that.
Yeah, if you could emphasize that, and if there's, do we need and because I'm thinking future, this is something where we might be able to do this once we go back regular, to a regular school day. Is there a way, or I think we should consider doing some kind of, discipline policy regarding disseminating the information when it's not. So that's for a future, I guess.
Well,
That's
So
actually already
historically-
in the policy, on page 5,
Okay,
where it talks about the consequences and other appropriate discipline, and it lists 8 different, action points within a purview.
Because you often handle it on a one-off basis because every situation can be slightly different,
Okay.
right?
okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that there's, I guess that's a concern. And then policy 1648, which is the restart and recovery, what stuck out to me was just, I remember reading somewhere that for students on the free lunch, it's going to be given out on Wednesdays, is that correct, for the week? Did I read that right? Okay, yeah, I just wanted to, see if we could maybe do some type of outreach, one, to remind parents that this is the case. And two, because of COVID, I think a lot of people's economic situation might have changed, and maybe I know we always send it out,
Right.
but really encourage people to
Yes.
see if they're maybe qualify now, where maybe in the past they hadn't. I just think that it's gonna be maybe, our numbers would go up. I want people to know. it's
Yeah, we
available.
generally send it out as part of a packet, but maybe we could send this out as a single topic email.
Yeah, and like normally you have to qualify, right?
Yes.
What, if you're struggling and this is going to serve your family, like, don't worry about the qualifications. Let the district know that you have a need, and we'll see what we can do. And if we are not allowed to spend the money, we'll find people to donate, and then nothing will be said. I mean, if you're having trouble feeding your children, and we're serving food, don't hesitate to ask. We'll find a way. You don't have to fill out state forms or anything. Not that they're.
Adam, I love that you say that. We talked about this several years back, and it's kind of like if someone actually comes and asks for help,
Yeah.
then they need it. So
Yeah.
why make them have to jump through hoops.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that.
Well, I will say, because it's not just about food, you know, and this is why you fill out the forms, because we have federal grants that come along with that, because if you are food deprived, you're deprived in other areas. And if you're also food deprived, you're in your growth years, you're behind developmentally, and that's where services come in. You're behind physically, that's where other services come in. So it isn't just about food. I agree. If you have that problem, fill it out. If you don't qualify, then everything you said is right. But it's a survey, it's a questionnaire asking, do you fit the bill? If you fit the bill, fill out the form.
Yeah, most importantly though, I think the eye on the ball is like food. And
Sure.
if you're having trouble feeding your kid, we will say anonymously, if you can fill this form out, it's gonna help us with federal aid. We get money, and that will help us with everything that we need to do. But if you don't wanna fill it out, don't fill it out. I mean, we need to take care of our kids first, and this community can. I'm not saying,
Yeah, no, I'm not saying this community can, is it just the school district's responsibility to do that though? That's a slippery, everybody should make sure a child is fed.
Yeah.
We have a mandate and we took an oath for free and appropriate public education, you know, and food comes along with that at lunchtime. And for those that do qualify, that's also breakfast. It's not dinner. If you really need the help, ask for the help. There's lots of avenues for food. And this is coming from the person who every year at this time does this pitch to go and fill out the form, leave pride at the door, fill out the form, get the services that your kids need. It's not just the food, it's the services too. So fill it out. But yes, if there's anonymous, you go to your counselor, you can fill that. There are lots of services. We're gonna have the health department living up our ass. Let's just call it a day. So one of the other functions of that department is those types of services. So we can say, hey, they don't qualify, but keep an eye on this family. That's easy to do. We're in contact with them anyway. We're gonna be in contact with them.
On this note, I just want to make a plug to fill out your census if you haven't yet, because it's very important to the community and resources. So you only have, I think, a few more days, right? It's not that much time, so fill it out. It literally takes less than 5 minutes.
The only, now, I think because now we may find people that haven't normally been in this situation. So for people watching or who know someone, who do you, Gino or Chuck, who do you go to if you want to be discreet and you want?
Either your counselor or your building principal.
So building principal or counselor.
So, in my experience, Gino, you could probably speak to the same thing. My experience as principal high school, I often, we would get people coming. And we also got teachers who heard kids talking in the hallway who would come and say, Chuck, you should check on Family X because I think there's something going on there, and we would reach out. You know, and we did ask, whenever we helped, we asked them to fill a form. If they said they were uncomfortable, we still helped anyway. And I think the biggest thing is the places we saw, we did a lot of it was with the senior trip, senior stuff like that. We spent a lot of money on that. And a lot of gift cards at holiday times, the traditional pieces there.
For internet connection, and I know Verizon provides stuff, but acting as a way to inform people what's available. And, you know, just 2 other points is that even though we will have more people than before, I would be surprised if we had so much that it was overwhelming. And my point is that I think it's more important to encourage people to reach out with the promise, as there's always been, the promise of discretion, because the form might be hard for people, or they may not want to, or there's also going to be people that would have never qualified in the past, but they're currently unemployed. And so they may have certain hardships that, you know, I don't know how else to explain it, just are new to them. And, yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, speaking of forms on the restart and recovery policy, hey, Chuck, can you say a couple words again about what certifications, if any, we're going to require from parents? And what frequencies on a daily basis? At some point, we were talking about the certifications, right? We're all saying
That they're healthy.
our parents can actually, you know, do this each day, and
The expectation is each day, so, we will, right now, just so you know, when you log on to the district, you get the form comes up for you to fill out, so we didn't come in. But our plan is to send an email with a link to the form globally every single morning, and expect the parents to fill it out. It'll come through Genesis, and then that way we can run a report you did not fill it out that day. And ideally, everyone will fill it out, so the list, if you do not fill it out, will be very short, there's a couple phone calls. There's days it may not be that way, but that's the plan.
And just follow up,
Follow up.
because 100% people.
No, we, probably not, no, I'm gonna go with that.
All right.
I'm still a little optimism. I don't know, not yet.
So I'll make a motion.
We've already motioned, we're ready to vote if everyone's done discussing. Okay, Mike, call.
Mr. Vecchio,
Yes.
Ms. Crockett,
Yes.
Ms. Kuntner,
Yes.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
Ms. Hogerl.
Yes.
Mr. Bedford,
Yes.
Vice President Seidel,
Yes.
President Sangillo.
Yes. Okay, number 11, curriculum and special education. We're approving conferences. We're approving audiology service company to provide services next year. Hewitt Psychiatry to do psychiatric evaluations. The company Tech, TECC, to provide assistant technology services. We're approving 2 textbooks. The renewal of the ST Math for support resources. We're approving Lucy Calkins' digital subscription. We're approving Screencastify to help with our digital hybrid learning. Fall instructional support program, additional fall support, instructional support programs for kindergarten and first grade. We're approving the live stream protocols for teachers. We're approving the live stream protocols for parents. We are resolving between Nearpad and the Board of Education for student programs. We have 2 specific students receiving services from Gloucester County Special Services and Brett Denovian Associates. We're approving the contract renewal for Panorama Education to provide SEL surveys next year. Erin Hart, speech language pathologist, will be working with the board. We have 2 Camden County Special Service agreements to approve to provide to us. We're resolving for Cheerful Chatter to do speech evaluations, EBS as well to do speech evaluations. We have 2 students from the College of going to College of New Jersey and Yale School services for 2 students at daily rates. We are resolving between Cooper University physicians to provide neurological evaluations, the Regional Enrichment and Learning Center, the REAL Center for Family First services for 2 students. This New Jersey Department of Human Services Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired are serving 7 students in district. We're approving the Burlington County Special Services for a specific student. Kingsway Learning Center will be working with 5 students. The New Jersey Interscholastic Athletic Association membership is due. 3 students of Rutgers, a Temple, and a Rowan student will be working with 3 staff in district this year. We have 3 curriculum projects to be paid, and we are resolving to approve the tutor list. Can I get a motion for those items?
Motion.
Justin?
Second.
David? Do we have discussion?
I just wanted to, since it's not really a question, just a commendation. I really want to commend Dr. Murray and all of the principals and the members of the academic steering committee, all of the teacher leaders on the live stream protocols and expectations for the teachers and the parents. It was a concern we all had on how to kind of figure out to make that most advantageous to the students and effective for the teachers. And I thought they did a really good job. They came out, I thought they were really effective. And I do encourage parents to read the protocols and expectations, really to see, I mean, reading them, I felt like I got a really good understanding of what the goal was and what the expectation was, and I thought they just did a great job on them, and I think the information is really going to be helpful to the students and the parents. So thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Any other?
How much is left in CARES Act after only week? Sorry, to put you on the spot. You can be ballpark.
Get back.
Okay, thank you. There's the things you haven't thought about, right? Hopefully not a lot, but from a tool standpoint. Thanks. Thanks.
All right, Mike. Call?
Ms. Crooked,
Yes.
Ms. Kutner,
Yes.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
Ms. Hogarth,
Yes.
Mr. Benford,
Yes.
Vice President Seidel,
Yes.
Mr. Vecchio,
Yes.
President Sangelo.
Yes. Okay, personnel, we are approving new personnel, transfers, salary upgrades, mentoring, extracurricular coaching appointments, and leaves of absences and resignations. We are resolving for 10 days curriculum for HMS counselors to complete the schedule for next year. 5 of those, the teachers worked on that, or staff worked on that. We're an additional 10 hours of curriculum rate for HMS counselors to work with students for next year. We are approving a 56 additional hours for our nurse at the high school, Dana Ranganata, to complete the physical exams. We are resolving for Dana O'Connor to provide speech evaluations as needed in the summer. Katie Russo is is completing her Rowan University principal internship with Jerry Bissinger at Elizabeth Haddon. We're approving to have math committee changes. So we're replacing some committee members for the math committee. We're resolving to for additional child study team summer work for 4 teachers. We're resolving to have 13 teachers be paid 3 hours each of curriculum rate for scheduling work. We are approving a resolution for the child study team honorarium to be paid in 2 installments for 7 child study team members. Can we get a motion? Linda?
Second.
David? All right, any discussion? Gina?
Can I just put a quick plug in for the child study team?
Yeah.
The child study team completed, I think the number was 132 evaluations over the summer. In-person, individual evaluations. And that was due to the hard work of Dr. Henderson, the members of the child study team, Rowan Practicum students who worked with us, educational assistant Doris Davenport and Deb Borum, who helped coordinate the logistics of the process. It was a big effort and a job well done that I think deserves this public recognition.
I'm glad you said that. They deserve it.
So their schedules will come out just like everyone else's as soon as, not the schedules, the, what? I don't know.
Okay.
These are evaluated.
Yeah, they've all been evaluated, right? So now the specific services will now be assigned, or?
It depends.
Oh.
So the evaluation.
That's what I was getting at,
Yeah, so-
not their schedule, but their service is scheduled.
Correct, or in some cases, whether or not they qualify for services.
Okay,
Which
so
is
the
the
rulings
objective of the
for
test.
those.
Correct.
That's the next step.
Yeah, it depends on the reason for the evaluation. It was either part of an initial evaluation to determine whether or not they're a child with special needs, or a triennial reevaluation to determine if they're still eligible for services. Or the third component is additional evaluations to help inform programming services.
Okay.
Thanks, Gina. Any other? Okay, Mike?
Ms. Kutner,
Yes.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
Ms. Hogartle,
Yes.
Mr. Benford,
Yes.
Vice President Seidel,
Abstain.
Mr. Vecchio,
Yes.
Ms. Crockett,
Yes.
President Sangelo.
Yes. Okay, we're approving business and financial recommendations. We're going to increase the substitute nurse pay rate to $155 a day. We owe Stronghold Trading Company a debt of gratitude. They are donating money for various PPE equipment. We are approving a tuition contract with Haddon Township to send a student in. We are approving the reimbursement of 6 employees for work they did over the summer. We're approving the standard operations procedure and internal control document for the district. We are approving contracts with Discovery Education for Elizabeth Haddon. We are accepting a donation. We also have to thank the Tullys. Mr. Dennis Tully is donating a safe space scanner to monitor temperatures at the high school for open campus students. We are paying our bills, doing budget transfers, board secretary's report, and cash summary report. Can I get a motion?
Motion. Second.
Heather and Justin, questions?
Just Stronghold Warehouse is a trading company, so that's my college roommate. He owns a company, a warehouse, obviously. And as they're selling PPE, they are donating to schools. They're matching with schools and homeless shelters. So they're doing a lot of donating of materials there. And just called me up and said, "Could you use some?" I said, "Certainly." But they primarily donating to homeless shelters. We're not getting a lot of that. Just that's who that is doing.
Their donation and the Tully's donation, it's just wonderful when people reach out to us, really for no other reason but to be kind.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful.
Can you tell me more about Safe Space Scanner that the Tollys are donating? What it does, how it operates?
It's a freestanding unit. You walk up, does a temperature read, checks to see if you have a mask on, and as students have open campus, they're going to be coming and going, so they'll be specifically dedicated to those students that have a place to check temperature.
Faster.
Faster, right? And not have a faculty member there the whole time.
Yeah.
Be monitored.
That's great.
That is great.
And we're expanding open
Thank you.
campus?
What's that?
Expanding
They
open
expanded
campus?
to sophomores this year too, simply.
For relief.
Yeah, fewer bodies in the building.
Yes, staff and students.
We are, at my work, we have to use a safe space scanner
Everything.
for the
Okay.
same reason, to check your mask and your temperature at the same time.
Any other? All right, Mike?
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
Ms. Hogartle,
Yes.
Mr. Benford,
Yes.
Vice President Seidel,
Yes, abstain on H.
Mr. Vecchio,
Yes.
Ms. Crockett,
Yes.
Ms. Kuttner,
Yes.
President Sangelo.
Yes. Okay, we're improving minutes for the regular meeting July 16th and the special meeting July 28th. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Nice. Get these things moving. Items for future consideration of the board. I did want to say something that I did not, probably in the board report, may have been a better time. But, we're moving forward. We've received communications from parents and staff and students and community members. This is a difficult time. We're entering, there is a trial-esque feel to what we're doing. We're trying to serve our students the best we can under the guidance of our administration in an environment that's safe. The two things I wanted to mention are, one, we're within 2 weeks of school. So, parents and we have to be smart. My parents told me to, once they said, you don't have a curfew tonight, make good decisions. And while I was running through the woods away from the police, I was thinking, well, I'm not making the decisions that I should have been making. Just to our community, try to make good decisions about what you're doing leading up to school. This is obviously a critical time for our students. Having this be a success will yield tremendous dividends. So be mindful about what we're doing with our kids heading into this last 2 weeks of summer. And along with that, I mean, I know a lot of parents are supplementing educational services for their kids. They're calling them pods, where kids get together, possibly in homes or places that have been rented. If you can, take the district's lead about what it is to be a safe space. Try to have distancing, wear the masks, because it would be a shame to have the school operate well and then have other areas break down because they're not following the same protocols, and that be the reason why we have a number spike and have to make changes to the plan. So, for our community members watching and spread it to your friends, let's try to be responsible in the 2 weeks leading up to school. Understand that not everyone is in your situation. People have health considerations in their family or with themselves. So not everybody is in a place to take risks are measured differently for different families. So keep that in mind. So we are doing this together and make this a team effort. That's just what I think the board, our internal conversations have been geared towards those things, trying to encourage smart decisions from our community.
To that end, a parent shared with me a billboard, a banner at Villanova. That's a pledge of how you behave during this time. So I'm going to steal some of the language, not exactly. Then we'll have those in all of our classrooms too. A pledge, and we're here for other people who have to consider those things. That piece as well.
Yeah.
Hey, Adam, items for future consideration. I know I mentioned a meeting or two ago coming up with our mission and goals for the year. I realize there's so many moving parts, and who knows what school will look like, whether we can open up more and have more full-time, or if we have to quarantine more. I realize that will all change, but I just want to throw back out there, if you guys want to think about putting it on the calendar for October, November, and then if we have to change it, then we have to change it based on emergencies. But if it's not put on the calendar to have that discussion, it probably won't ever happen.
All right.
When are we going to release the thematic calendar too? That's been working on. You mentioned.
I got to work on that.
All right, good.
What else have you been doing, Chuck?
I know, with that end, I have my item for future consideration. I realize we have so much going on. I just don't want the conversation to stop concerning the town hall meeting on diversity
Right.
and those questions, and if if we could, give people could get an idea of when to expect some kind of discussion.
As I said earlier, we're looking for early October for our next one.
Okay.
We still have some work to do in place. And we met with Shelley Zion a couple of weeks ago to talk about some of these things. So we're trying to figure where we go. We had that good, healthy thing of asking those questions. Now we have those answers out there. What's our next step in it? So that's we're shooting for early October.
Okay, sounds good.
And in that vein, I brought up I'd let you know that one of the things I'd be interested in is
Progress that was made or efforts that were put upon in the recruiting process of the new teachers, and not for now, but in a report or some sort, and it actually could be tied to that presentation. The effort that we expended to recruit people of color into the district, and the success and the challenge that you had, and strategies for next year.
Strategies for next year are important. So like everything, we very rarely hear about job fairs. And last year we scheduled, I think, 5. And specifically one out of UPenn, which was for teachers of color. They were all canceled. So we fell back into the normal way of recruiting. The other thing, we were talking about this today, there's a scarcity. We're not getting a lot of applicants overall. So I think the example given today was when Shannon Simpkins was in her first year as a principal, they were looking for an elementary school principal, or teacher, excuse me. They had over 1,000 applicants. This year we had just over 200, and almost half of them are people we had interviewed before and didn't hire. So overall this year it's been a really challenging piece. But I'll certainly get you those pieces.
Oh, thanks for discussing. And then the other thing I want to bring up was something I had hinted at the beginning of the night. I think we're going to have a serious discussion about what we want to do with next door. If, the expression was, I'm sitting here trying to think of the right expression about looking a gift horse in the mouth. But it's funny, when that horse comes with baggage, maybe you have to. Sitting and listening to some of the discussions that the borough was having about not only affordable housing, but just disposition of property they own, led me to kind of just take a really sad walk across down Hopkins Lane and looking at the state of the buildings, and then seeing the discussion and the update from Mike today about, you know, probably moving forward with the demolition of what could have been prized space, even if this was consummated 7-8 months ago, before all the windows were broken and the wood was pried off, and it got even worse, before they ever boarded it up. We went into the land swap with hope that it would be a relatively painless process. And painless on our side it was, because to dispose of land, you have to prove you never need it, but we weren't really disposing of land. We were trading the location of land. The acreage was a little bit smaller, but in a better location for us. But there was promise with that too. So the promise of Cooley Hall, could it be used? We talked to some private third parties that might have come in and done updates and then leased space back to us. So we had plans in place. If it would have been executed in a time when that building could have been saved, because we were looking at an opportunity for not only revenue, but a private partnership, a public-private partnership that could have given us a location for expanding things like pre-K, kindergarten, office space. That's out the window now. What we're left with are 2 historic buildings. And our maintenance people are really great. There's actually second to none. But there's only 2 types of buildings, right, that are institutional, and they're schools and prisons. So we are very good at keeping cinder block and brick buildings running that have big open spaces. And as a town, we just put in a lot of money for the teaching of our children, not for the preservation of historic buildings. So that's all that's going to be left, is a carriage house that looks like shit and is probably built like it too, and a greenhouse that the roofs don't even close. It rains in there every time it rains. The weeds are just going to hell on it. Why on earth do we want to take that on?
Can I just give a different view on that? I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
Sure, no, go ahead, no. Well,
I agree with everything. There is no structure of value to us on that land, but the value to us is the land. Picture someone 70 years from now, because we know that high school building is still going to be there, and we had an opportunity to have land around the high school for one of the smallest high school sites in the state, and we didn't do it. And so all we're doing at this point, and I agree, it's land banking. There's, Cooley Hall will be knocked down, but I mean, we are a land poor district.
We are a land district by decision. So I would say we are sitting in the C wing, correct?
Correct.
Before 1970, this was 7 or 8 houses. And the district declared commendation proceedings against those houses. We purchased them, we leveled them, and we built land. We still have an opportunity through that process. As egregious and as cold as that sounds, we have an opportunity somewhere in the future to buy some houses on Evergreen and connect the Tatum property and the high school property. We have the opportunity, as long as it is still not purchased and protected by Green Acres funds, to buy things like Remington Vernick and the building next to it, which are lots of land right behind the building, when and if we need it. We are landlocked, but not land poor. We always have that strategy to do that.
It doesn't provide the same opportunities, though, Dave. I mean, having the site right next door, and I was under the assumption that what is the carrying cost for us? That was within that the borough is knocking down Cooley. We have the other two structures are what they are. There's not a whole lot of square footage in them.
There's not a lot of square footage, but there's a lot of baggage that comes with them. The baggage of upkeep, the baggage of a town that really cherishes historic preservation. That's not our game.
I agree, but we're talking less than 2,000 square feet on that. I mean, you have to, and I'm not saying yes or no, but I'm saying that we really need to look at the big picture, because there are a lot of decisions that have been made in this town for schools that never looked at the big picture and decisions. So, I mean, this is a really consequential generational decision, because we reinvested in this building for the next at least 75 years.
Absolutely. And what the last 7 months or 8 months have told us is we're probably in 70 years going to be needing less space, not more space. This town is built out. So even with all the affordable housing you could ever possibly cram in here, our population size isn't going to get to the point of new buildings. The new buildings will come when we need, when these are just wore out and we build them. And that's for another board to handle. I'm just so nervous, not only for the district, but for the town. The money that could have gone into educating our children, either through material, through salary, through, opportunities from changes in instruction and all, we're going to be going into maintaining monuments. Because that's what those buildings are to us. They're the monuments. And when you get to that, and when we put that much money, and when those buildings are as protected as they are, we don't have the land that we think we have. We have the land that Cooley sits on and some parking space. We're not banking buildable land. Some of it's buildable, but some of it's not. And we're banking two monuments. We already have two monuments out front.
I think it would be helpful to have the site plan up to see, it's a significant area. That Cooley is like a really bad layout. It takes up a lot of land, but it's definitely significant land. The upkeep of 2,000 square feet of historic building is a pain, but I don't think it's consequential compared to the bigger picture. But I think it's something, we should pull up the site plan and have a discussion on this.
For everybody to understand, the square footage of Cooley Hall is actually bigger than Lizzie had. Just from its mass, and it's only, it's one story. So if you think about it, it's sprawling, but its square footage is actually bigger than Lizzie had. So it is a substantial piece of property, poorly laid out, and surrounded by two historical structures that really we won't be allowed to do anything with.
Question. I don't follow your point, and this is my question. I want to understand your point. Are you saying that you wish we were not taking this land and that we didn't have it with the buildings, or are you just pointing out the difficulty that we now have because of maintaining the buildings?
No, I'm saying that the value of that land was land, but it was also a structure that we could have put an investment in with a third party to improve and use at a significant discount than building new. There was an opportunity to be net better and soon.
Agreed.
And that building went to shit. And now it's gonna be torn down. So the transactional value to me just isn't there. There's the land bank part of it. Well, there's no going back. We actually haven't consummated it. So we don't have to execute it. We've never voted to actually formally accept it. The keys and the deed, that's what says this is now yours. We have not had a closing. So that to me, that's what it was. It was the land value of it being close to the school. And it was the immediate value of doing something with Cooley that we can't do now because it took too long. The building got too bad and now it's gotta get torn down. And to me, just the value isn't there anymore. It's more valuable to just, and frankly, the borough doesn't have a great track record of keeping their stuff up and working well. And the money will all be gone when they buy Radnor from us. What are they going to do over there? Is it just going to go to hell? Are we now damning the whole Tatum section? John Stokes, God bless his heart. He stood up here during the referendum to buy that land in the first place. And he said it. He said, what is going to become of this? If it wasn't for building, he really feared that it would just go to hell. You know, it's a swamp, and our maintenance people do a really good job of keeping the wolves at bay. And those wolves are swamp and weed and just a general overgrowth and a deterioration of that space. I don't know. Just my crystal ball says the borough's not gonna have any money to keep it up like the way we did. We had a reason to keep it up. It's athletic fields for us. It's a baseball field, and it's a field hockey space, or it's two fields, actually. Two fields, and no other damning piece of evidence is, when I say there's two fields, there's three fields, there's four fields, the school cares about two fields, the JV field and the varsity field. There's a field over at Wayne that sometimes is there and sometimes isn't. And then there used to be basketball courts when the borough wanted to have basketball courts down there, and they couldn't keep them up. So they tore them out. And although, you know, we talked about that envisioning stuff, and they said, oh, you know, we're going to want to put it back. Where the hell are they getting the money? They have the money in an open space fund that now they're going to use to basically buy our land from us. So they're not going to have any left. And they won't have any money to help us maintain two structures that we really have no need for, but can't do anything with.
Hey, quick question. I understand Pooley Hall isn't as valuable now as it could have been had we been able to rehab it and maybe do something with a third party. Now that we got to tear it down, but you're saying there's two other structures, like a greenhouse that are just historical, we can't even tear down?
That's correct. They cannot be
They just
torn
have
down.
to stay there.
Not only stay there, they need to be maintained, because if you look at Boxer Hall, if you look at Lulworth Hall, that's what we're staring at. Either we put money in it and we fix them up and we find uses for them, or they sit and rot, and, you know, we get people with pitchforks coming at us and saying, start spending money. People don't determine their tax money needs to do this. People come here for the schools, they come here for the historic charm. Haddonfield, historically hip. Well, we're gonna be on the hook for keeping that part of the town legacy going when that's not our mission. So I'm not saying to do anything tonight, I'm just saying there's a reckoning coming, and it's been, the other small signal for me is they haven't been able to consummate it. It's not us, we've been sitting and waiting forever. It's the borough that can't consummate it. Why? That's when you start asking, what the hell's going on? And it's not the lawsuit. You know, they've already rezoned it. They've had SHPO problems, the State Historic Preservation Office. That's where a lot of their problems have sat, about why they haven't been able to consummate this yet. We're gonna be buying, we already had SHPO. You knows what SHPO did for us? They took, on our referendum, a $600,000 architectural asphalt roof on this building, and they made us do synthetic slate, and that price went from 600 to $1 million. So that was a $400,000 decision we had no say in, because SHPO said, your building's from 1926, it's on Kings Highway, and it had blue slate, blah, blah, blah. Spend the money. Thank goodness they didn't make us do slate, because what was that price, Susan? $4 million to just do the roof on this building? So these are the things we're gonna be buying when we buy that land, to bank it for a hope down in the future. And all I'm saying is there's an alternative to that, and that's if somewhere down the line we needed space, we have eminent domain power, God, we wouldn't want to use it. But if we had to, and if the town said, we're gonna give you the money to make an improvement to this location or to Tatum's location, well, then we start buying houses. I mean,
if you don't mind, like, one of the things, I think what I want to do when we talk about this land swap, if it ever goes through, is we've got to maintain expectations. And I mean, people have been talking, since we mentioned the idea of the swap, townspeople have been talking to the district about what they want to do with these historic properties. First, they're afraid we're going to tear them down, which we've said unequivocally we're not tearing them down. But then it's, you know, how much money do you have budgeted to put into fixing them up? None. And given the last 6 months, we have less opportunity to put real money into these things. So we're going to inherit land that's going to have inherited costs. And one of the things we had a conversation in finance and facilities is, do we have to budget for keeping those properties? Or do we have the staff and the ability to maintain them? And for the period of time, we have the ability to maintain them without dumping money into them. But this community is not going to sit and watch like they're doing with Lulworth and with Bancroft. The community is going to want those properties fixed. And I think we should start to set the expectation in the community that it's going to require donations and grassroots work, because we need to pay teachers. We need to buy technology. These are the things that we do. We finance education. We don't finance historic rehabilitation. So everyone has ideas about what they want to do with these projects. There were fundraisers, in the works a year ago, but we didn't know the project, so we couldn't go through with them. I think we just have to set expectations that, first of all, we have to see if the commissioners can actually finalize this deal. It's been so long that I don't know that we're confident that they're able to get there. And because there are other good things associated with this deal. If Radnor Fields gets put into the Green Acres registry, it can never be developed. Right now, we can sell Radnor Field whenever we want, and we don't even need to ask the public. And I don't think the public realizes that. The Board of Education, at their leisure, can sell property. With the Board of Education, or Department of Education approval. And then reduce debt, do that kind of thing. But that's not, the swap kind of did some good long-term things for the town. It gave the school an opportunity to expand if it needed it down the road, and it locked up land, and we got money out of the neighbors. It still makes sense, but we're now inheriting a cost that I don't know that we can afford. So I want the borough to know that we don't have the money to fix those buildings up immediately. And we're going to be looking to the borough, either commissioners and or donations or fundraisers to do that meaningful work.
Originally, somehow got changed somewhere along the way, but we intentionally tried to cut out Lulworth Hall and let the borough keep that. I don't know if that's.
Well, it's always been that way. Lulworth Hall, we're not talking about Lulworth. We're talking about the carriage house and the greenhouse. They're small. They're small, but we've been contacted multiple times. We go, what are you going to do with them? Can we have them for this? Can we have them for that? How much money? And the question is, how much money are you going to put in?
Well, the threat was always, we'll use the Green Acres funds to lock up the land next to you then. But that still doesn't leave them the money to fix up the properties that.
Well, they'll be ours eventually. The borough's not going to, I don't foresee the borough handing us money to fix up properties that isn't on their land.
I just think as a board, we seriously have to look at it again. That's my point.
I guess my concern is this, because I don't feel like I know enough about this situation. I would like, as soon as Susan suggested, seeing the plans again, like, if this is this big of a discussion that we're talking about it right now, I don't know we should be having it now, because I think, one, it confuses the public, and then we don't have all the same information. This predates me. I know about it. I've been to some facilities meetings about it, but I don't know. I guess my fear, I would like information from a neutral basis before we really get into discussion about it.
I think you're
more comfortable.
Absolutely correct.
This predates a third of the board. Yeah. So I think and that's why I waited until items for future consideration, because this is really getting to the end, right? And that's the ask, is a full third of this board had nothing to do with this decision. And boards change. And this is that same argument I had about the policy, that the next board could have a completely different idea. You haven't had an opportunity to share your thoughts about these things. I do think until we actually consummate it, we should have that meeting.
Nothing materially has changed other than time and the economy, right? Nothing in the plan has changed. We've been delayed as a result of some.
Oh, I disagree with that. Cooley Hall won't be there.
Well, but time. Cooley Hall has continued to fail, and we're in a different financial situation. If you remember, a year ago, we were talking about what our potential capital improvements, or Susan's working on a long-range facilities plan. It still has to be done, but our ability to fund it looks dramatically different than it did 6 months ago.
Why don't
So,
I put this on the agenda for a future meeting, but provide just informational, unbiased background on Bancroft before we have the discussion.
And I think that what we also need to know, I mean, yes, to enhance the properties, you rely on donations, but I think we should have the information of what's the basic maintenance going to be on an annual basis.
yeah, we do have that.
Okay.
And what is actually really historic? I know we always wanted to utilize the greenhouses,
We don't get to say what's historic.
but that's my point. I never heard until tonight the greenhouse was considered historic. We just wanted to utilize it. Maybe it's better to build a new one.
I think actually a house, the structure the greenhouse is attached to is historic.
Oh, no, that's the carriage house. So they get the carriage house.
And the greenhouse has another structure.
Yeah,
It's a two-story building.
It's called something else,
Okay.
but that's also on the list.
Susan, your ears are ringing because you're gonna get brought in for another presentation.
I'm sorry, Susan, it's not the deal it was in my mind, that's all.
See, I never saw it as, like, Cooley Hall was a bonus to me if it worked out. For me, it was the land. I just feel that we have an obligation to increase the high school site. Even if we just seed it naturally, let it go to nature, or put a gravel parking lot on it. Yeah, that's all.
Sure, and I saw that too, but I mean, one of the things that I just think that this district could always use, and that's public-private partnerships, and that was a great opportunity.
Yeah, but
To-
we have no idea if that's even still.
Well, we don't know. We don't know that either, but that could have been a different reason to make this go to pot. That's all. So if we could add that to a future agenda just to bring the new board, and we'll be the new board after January too, so it'll be the same board, to just bring them up to speed on the swap.
Yeah, it's totally appropriate.
That's what it is.
All right, good. Any other items?
Just, we had a meeting this morning and an old face revisit. Craig Ogilvy is going to be back with us for a little bit. Mr. Ogilvy. That's because Jerry Bissinger had his baby, Ivy. So happy, good luck, Bissingers, and welcome, Craig.
Yeah. Welcome back, Craig. Happy baby. Anything else?
That's it.
All right, guys, any motion to close?
Motion.
Jamie and Justin. Or did Heather do?
No, Heather.
Heather and Justin, sorry. All right, thanks for coming out.
Thanks,
guys.
all.
It was good to see everybody in person, and,
Yeah.